Hey, beautiful human. Welcome to the second episode of From Chaos to Cozy, where we're on an amazing journey gaining clarity around our chaos and how to see our cozy more clearly. In the last episode, we talked a little bit about what chaos and cozy are, and the podcast was just a little over 15 minutes, but we'll be expanding more towards 30-minute podcast episodes. I guess Spirit wanted to ease you in with the first podcast. Much of this lifetime does involve us interacting with what some call our shadow. And I can't remember where I heard it, but someone once said that you can't have shadow without light. And that is so true. When we're walking away from the light source, we see our shadow so distinctly. And when we're walking toward the light source, we don't see our shadow because it's behind us. Makes sense, right? It seems that we spend a lot of time walking away from the light in our earlier years as we explore the depths of the human experience. So our shadow kind of takes on a stronger role during that time. The walking toward the light, where we don't experience the shadow being such a strong character in our story, seems to happen more so toward our last days as a human in each lifetime. I feel that most of our time spent here as this human character is more of a zigzag toward the light, the cozy. And so we tend to see the light on one side of us and the shadow on the other. Many organized religions and spiritual practices talk of destroying the shadow, the ego, the smaller self, or whatever they might call it. You know, what a fun game that is. Because higher vibrational, unconditional love energy isn't about destruction or reconditioning or whatever form we're told we must use to destroy the shadow. And as Rumi says, or as I paraphrase, we don't need to discover that amazing unconditional love that exists within us. We just need to discover the obstacles that we've created between us and it. It already exists in our heart. We need only to uncondition ourselves by questioning and transforming the thoughts and emotions that block our view of this amazing, bright love. Lower vibrational energy wants to destroy and eliminate. And so when we're caught up in that game of destroying our shadow, it keeps us looping in the shadow. But our shadow is part of us, as we'll chat about in a moment. Why would we want to tear out our own stomach when it's hungry? Our hunger pains and thirst are what actually eventually revealed to us that the outside world cannot give us what we're looking for. We'll talk about the 10-course meal. You know, our heart is so hungry for the unconditional love that it was used to experiencing back home. That is the only love that can truly fill us up. The outside world is unstable, temporary, and can't complete us. When we define ourselves by those things, trying to validate our self-worth by the outside world, we feel unstable. We're taught to define ourselves and fill ourselves up by the 3 cups I talked about in episode 1: relationships, situations, and things. But people change. They walk away. They pass away. Situations we get in, like jobs and careers and education, social status, etc., seldom ever stay the same. And things like our bodies, our bank accounts, and possessions blow up, burn down, deteriorate, break, or are stolen. And that is the fickleness of the outside physical world that we live in. We look for our self-worth out there, but that isn't self-worth. Self-worth comes from the capital S self, inward and upward. Out there, we find retail price. That's the value that we think others put on us. But like retail price, it all depends on the season, who's purchasing it, and even that can fluctuate with each person. Because if we're a warm parka coat in the winter in northern Alaska, we're going to be well sought after and maybe even be marked up in price. And when we're that same coat on a tropical island on the equator during the summer, we might not even make it to the clearance rack. We might just get donated to some charity. Our heart is longing for a nutritious 10-course meal with 2 desserts. All the outside world can offer us is a giant dessert bar, no real food. We search, and all we get is dessert. Eventually, our heart is so hungry, it becomes desperate, and maybe even a little hangry, hungry, angry. And when we're disappointed enough, tired enough of the lack we experience in the outside world, we're drawn inward and upward in our hearts, and boom, there it is, the 10-course meal we've been longing for. And it comes with 2 desserts. Score! We are filled from the inside. And that doesn't mean that we stop wanting dessert from the outside world, because we can always make room for more dessert. We just stop looking for it to give us something that it can't. The impact the outside world has on us diminishes as well. When someone brings us 7th dessert and suddenly they pull it back and refuse to give it to us, we aren't as manipulated or scared by their actions because we're so full already. We might even silently thank them for not giving it to us. Our shadow gives us this experience. We don't need to destroy our ego or our shadow. We just complete it, feed it, make it whole by giving it what it is so hungry and thirsty for: unconditional love. We seldom can find unconditional love out in the physical world unless we come across an enlightened master or soul that in the moment is radiating that unconditional love. But we do have an endless source of that unconditional love available to us right here in our own hearts, inward and upward. Ah, there it is. So what is our shadow? Let's get to know our shadow a little better. I found that as I discovered more about what or who this shadow is, I saw that they were my friend instead of my enemy. It's like the devil card in the tarot, which represents our shadow, that Saturn energy, that Capricorn energy. We officially meet our shadow in our darkest time. We really have known them all along, but at our lowest vibrational moment, we get to shake their hand as they begin to help us up. We are all on the same path of worth. We define ourselves by the outside world over and over and over based on what we're fed. And our shadow takes into it all the advice, all the opinions, all that information from the outside world that tells it who it's supposed to be, should be, has to be, must be, in order to be worth something, worthy of love, not rejectable. In the dark night of the soul, as some call it, it seems to come when we have been stubborn enough trying to live up to all the expectations of the outside world and keep failing it in some manner. It's a setup in a way because we're given so many roles from so many sources that even some of them end up being contradictory to each other. So we fail, we become a loser. But when our little child selves that live within our shadow feel unsafe and out of control, alarms sound. A prick happens in our heart, and we go into fight or flight mode for survival. That doesn't help the situation with the dark night because we're not thinking clearly. The intelligent, loving, compassionate side of us is rejected out of the control room, and all that's left is a little 2-year-old and its pet hissing cat, which that pet hissing cat does not have sound advice to give our 2-year-old self. It tells them to hiss and attack, or hiss and run away, or hiss, attack, and then run away. You can always spot someone who's in fear because they're doing stupid, unloving, and uncompassionate things. That's also how we recognize when we have been in fear. Look at the fearful choices we made, woohoo! And in hindsight, I wouldn't change my dark shadow experiences for anything because they were the turning points in my life where I altered my course to start moving more toward the light than walking away from it. As I mentioned, our journey is more like a zigzag back towards the light, going back and forth, taking the long way back rather than the direct line. And I imagine in the first iterations of humanity, we probably beelined it directly back toward the light because shadow and darkness were such an uncomfortable contrast to what we're used to back home. But over time, we realized and asked ourselves, what's the rush? Sure, we can end our human lives and be back to cozy right away, but it would cheat us out of the opportunity to experience cozy right here up against chaos. And that contrast is really so delicious. For us is what we're talking about next. And it's one huge transformational awareness that impacted my journey. And it is the movement from thinking that all these shadow experiences that were happening, that they were happening to me. That victim role experience is one of the big draws for souls to come to Earth. It's a rare ability to feel less than, small, limited, powerless, when in reality we are such powerful, amazing, eternal, supernatural spirit beings who are made of unconditional love. Contrast is a huge purpose of this physical realm. When we experience what we are not, we understand more clearly who we are. When we realize that before we come down to this lifetime, and we do live many lifetimes as humans, animals, and all sorts of other beings and other dimensions and universes too. So before we enter the womb, we've made many decisions already about what we want to experience here. We can trust that even if our human doesn't quite get why we would want to have experienced something, that it is truly for our highest experience and not some sort of punishment. Our shadow is merely taking us on a jungle safari because we have asked it to. Life is for us. Every experience is truly for us. And what is this shadow made out of? Well, the shadow is us, and we are made of unconditional love, so it is also made of unconditional love. We can think of it as a different end of a thermometer. It's not so much like two destinations or two separate entities, as much as a flow of something from like vapor to water to ice. You can't tell the exact point where one begins and one ends. They're all part of the same. They are the dark ink that writes upon the blank white paper. It brings us contrast, clarity, the story, the knowledge. It gives us the lower vibrational experiences that we eventually convert into higher wisdom and knowledge. And the shadow is like an operating system of a computer designed to help us experience the human adventure exactly as we have wanted to experience it. And if you're not familiar with computers, you can also look at our shadow like a cruise ship director, like Julie on the Love Boat, organizing events to make the most of our love cruise of this human experience. Now, the Love Boat, for those of you youngins, or if you're in another country, was an old TV sitcom with a catchy theme song. And these were some of the lyrics, which are interesting. They talk about love, exciting and new. Come aboard, we're expecting you. Love, life's sweetest reward. Let it flow, it floats back to you. The Love Boat soon will be making another run. The Love Boat promises something for everyone. Set a course for adventure, your mind on a new romance. Love won't hurt anymore. It's an open smile on a friendly shore. It's love, it's love, it's love. Now, for those of you that know the theme song, it's going to go in your head now, so I apologize. But it's so true. This life is all about love. Our existence is all about love. The answer to every question is unconditional love. Beneath everyone and everything, every experience is unconditional love. And realizing this and trusting this is what helped me on my adventure. And it can help all of us as we move up in our love vibration on every ever-present journey of moving from chaos of this human experience back to that of our true essence, cozy, unconditional love. Next episode, we're going to dive into the darkest time in my life. No fear, we have some great flashlights that will shine bright as we reflect upon the dark drama on a dark stage. So until next time, remember every second of every moment of our lives that we are eternally and unconditionally loved by the Mother and Father of all things, our Creator. And of course, I love you too. So hang in there, take care of you, and we'll see you soon.